This is the Greg Bedard Patriots podcast with Nick Cavins.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Sign up now at FanDuel.com/Boston, and new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Greg, we're going to play a little overrated, underrated today. And you, yes, Greg Bedard, the wet blanket, wanted to start with some positives. He wanted to take a look at the three most underrated things about this Patriots team as we get ready for the 2023 season. Greg, begin with your list.
Yeah, you know, Nick, it's easy with this team where they've been the past few years to be a little pessimistic, and that's probably where I am, and we've talked about that stuff before, but I do think, now's the time sort of in the off season. I think a lot of people are starting to get amped up for football season and training camp and stuff like that. So, of course we have to get both sides of the coin, but let's start positive. So, when I look at the 2023 Patriots, one of the bigger aspects that I think are sort of underrated that we haven't talked about, and I don't think a lot of people are talking about, is I do think the two tight ends, Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki, can be real weapons for this team. Now, are they going to dominate and be the difference maker for this team? No, but I think I think their presence is going to really help them move the ball, stay on the field more. All that good stuff. I mean, I think you're talking about two different guys. Like, Hunter Henry is not a prototypical inline Y tight end, but he can do a little bit of both. We saw, 2 years ago, him, really have a rapport with Mac Jones. I think that he tied for the league among tight ends with touchdowns. And so, you're hoping, getting back to Bill O'Brien, that they can get back to that offensively. And then you add Mike Gesicki to the mix, and he's really not a tight end. He's not. He's, if you thought Travis Kelce doesn't block or he's not physical, then, Mike Gesicki is altogether different than Travis Kelce. And I think that Mike Gesicki is a guy who, he's athletic enough. He has good hands. He can be a savvy route runner. And he's going to be in the slot mix. I think they're going to play Juju, if healthy, and Gesicki sort of off each other, maybe pair them up on the same side and sort of have different packages for them. And I just think that Hunter Henry and Gesicki, you combine what they do and you put them on the field together, especially in the red zone. I mean, we're talking about one of the worst offensive red zone teams I think it was the worst NFL red zone team in the NFL last year in the Patriots. And I think, running the ball a little bit better and getting these two tight ends involved, I think it's going to really help them in the red zone. And so to me, I'm optimistic, should these guys stay on the field, that I think they're going to be a real sort of mechanism for this offense to be more consistent, stay on the field, put up more points, take some pressure off the defense. I think the tight ends have a chance to do that for the Patriots.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating thing, the tight ends on this team, because you go back to last year and it was pretty much each guy's, worst season in quite a while, if ever, in the NFL. Hunter Henry was vastly underutilized because of Matt Patricia, Joe Judge, and the overall offensive plan. I think people forget how good Hunter Henry was in year one with Mac Jones. And I think Hunter's going to be good this season. And Gesicki, look, he got phased out in Miami. New offense, new system. Mike McDaniel does things differently. And Gesicki got phased out. He was not a part of that offense for all intents and purposes. And I think people might overlook how good that guy can be. I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're going to each have 65, 70 catches. This is going to be Gronk and Hernandez all over again. But I do think their impact is going to be underrated by some people. What's your second underrated part of this football team?
Mac Jones. I think that people are focused way too much on last season and what went down. And I think, Nick, I think they're factually incorrect about last season. Like, for example, I listened to my guys Felger and Maz, and Big Jim Murray has been, anti-Mac, since basically the start of last season. and even Tony gets into this where they criticize and they talk about his attitude and how he was a baby and his lack of leadership and stuff like that. And they say it in that it got worse as the season went on. That's just factually incorrect. Now, did he have a stretch with the Raiders game and the Bills game where that was an issue? Yes. And we talked about it at the time. I thought if they wanted to bench Mac Jones for Bailey Zappi, they had enough evidence to do it at that time because of the way Mac Jones was acting out. But to me, being objective and watching it down the stretch, the last 4 or 5 games, obviously Mac, either somebody talked to Mac or Mac realized what he was doing and he heard the criticism and he changed his way. I thought he was much more even keel to end the season. I thought he was better as a result to end the season. And here's the other thing with Mac Jones, Nick, is that, I think people forget how good his rookie season was. Now, look, was it, and a lot of other guys, look, Patrick Mahomes sat his first year in the league. A lot of guys, Aaron Rodgers sat his first 3 years in the league. Joe Burrow didn't have a great rookie season, got hurt at the end of it. He threw a lot of interceptions his rookie year with what was going on in Cincinnati. But Mac Jones, while it wasn't gangbusters, it was good. It was a good, solid starting place. And, I think that, look, I'm not going to go all Kirk Herbstreit and talk about how, great Mac Jones is and all this stuff. But I do think that, there's too much recency bias with Mac Jones. Like, he is very effective as a distributor. His mind, which was taken away from him, sort of pre-snap stuff and checks and audibles and stuff like that, all that stuff was taken away. He didn't get to use his best weapon. So did he look more limited last year than he really is? Yeah, I think there's way too much recency bias with Mac Jones. I think he's a good, solid, I would say after his rookie year, he was top 15, top 16, about middle of the road, which was good. I expect him to threaten the top 10. I don't think he'll quite get there this year, but I do think that he's going to get to the 10 to 12 range. And I just think his ability to be back in his type of offense, get the Patriots in and out of good plays, I think is really going to be an effective tool for this offense and gives me, some hope that the offense is going to make a lot of improvement this year.
I'm a Mac Jones guy. I've been a Mac Jones guy since his time at Alabama. I think he is more than good enough to be at least in the middle of the pack of quarterbacks in the NFL, as you mentioned, Greg. And when I look at the first season, it's funny. People will remember things that they want to remember, and they can shape narratives in any way that they want. And we're all guilty of it at times, for sure, especially in the talk show business. But, when you look at that first year, the narrative was, oh, man, the Patriots surrounded Mac with all of these new weapons. They spent a bunch of money, blah, 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 blah. Well, really, when you look at it, Nelson Aguilar was a minus. Kendrick Bourne had a good first year, but we thought he would take that next step, and I'll talk about him in a little bit. But Kendrick Bourne wasn't the ultimate game changer. Jonnu Smith never worked out for this team, never was a fit for whatever reason. Some of that on Jonnu, I'm sure, most of it maybe, some of it on the team. But when you look at what he had, what Mac Jones had in year one, I think has been overstated. His help has been overstated. He actually helped those guys play a little bit better. And I think last year, I know it might, for some people, be ridiculous to say this, but I couldn't care less. I'm throwing out last year. I don't think last year should be any kind of indication as to how any player can play within this offense and what this offense is going to look like. It was a disaster from day one, and it had to do with the decision to have Patricia and Judge running this offense, as we've talked about. So, I think Mac, it's a restart for him. It's a reset for him. I expect him to be good. What's your number one overrated part of this team?
Christian
Underrated,
Barmore.
sorry.
Underrated. Yeah. Christian Barmore. I think that, again, this is recency bias. And, it's going to be on Christian to be more consistent and ready from the get-go. His 2 seasons in the league, he hasn't been firing on all cylinders. Now, his rookie year, you can chalk that up to, being a rookie. but he closed his rookie year very impressively. Last season, slow start, injury issues really limited it, but he closed very strong again. I don't think people realize on a per play basis how effective Christian Barmore was as an interior pass rusher. And, to me, when, I'm trying to, be optimistic about this team, and, Christian Barmore, his ability, at least he has the ability to dominate the game from the inside, to make offensive coordinators stay awake and figure out, how are we going to block this guy? How are we going to count for him? If he can get off to a fast start this year and cause offensive coordinators to change things, how they approach the Patriots defense, I think Barmore dominating inside gives the Patriots a lot more ability to do different things. We always talk about their different versatility at all three levels and stuff like that. But, you really need, it's all well and good, and we'll talk about more about that when we get to some of the overrated things about this team. But I think that, you still need an ass kicker. You need guys who can just whip the guy in front of them at the point of attack. The Patriots don't have many of those guys. Judon, you can argue, you can use different stats to look at Judon different ways, but you can make the argument that a lot of his pressure comes from what they do up front, the little schemes and things like that. Whereas I think if you're looking objectively, you would say Christian Barmore has the most potential to be an ass kicker one-on-one on this defense. And the guy who is going to be a problem that other teams might say, we have to double team this guy, which frees up guys like Judon and Uche to do things up front. So when I look at last year was tough for him. It was a disappointment for me. I know it was a disappointment for him, but when I look at, starting fresh and tossing away last season and not having recency bias, I think Christian Barmore dominating on the inside is one of the things I'm most optimistic about going into this year.
Here's my quick list of 3 things. This might be a callback to my time with Adam Jones years ago, but special teams is number 3 on my list. And specifically the punting game and field position. I think people, they underrate, because it's special teams, they underrate how much of an impact the sucky punt game of the Patriots played last year, and how good the defense was in so many situations when they didn't have the greatest field position to deal with. And I think if you straighten that part of the game out, Joe Judge is leading the special teams group now. They should almost by default have a better punting situation this year. With this defense, I think that's going to pay some dividends. Number 2 on my list is Kendrick Bourne. Look, I just think his potential with this offense, going back to year 1, he's talked about it, how it just kind of got off the rails last year. He didn't feel as strong as he should have. Mentally, he wasn't all in on that. The Patricia stuff, it was a bad start when he had chances to play. He was committing penalties, doing some dumb things from time to time. I think we're going to see more of the Kendrick Bourne of his first year with the Patriots than last year with the Patriots, and that's going to make a difference. And another kind of sneaky thing here, and it shouldn't be, number 1 on my list is Mike Owenu's health. This offensive line, we've got questions at right tackle. We've got questions at left tackle. David Andrews has a history of injury, concussion at center. The solid rock of this foundation in front of Mac Jones is Owenu right now. And he obviously wasn't out there because of the offseason surgery. He's trying to get back and all of that stuff, but he needs to be healthy. I mean, if he's even 75% to start this season, then the concern about the offensive line is even larger than it is right now. And it's pretty considerable for you and I, especially at the tackle position. So I think his health is crucial, and we can't overlook that part. All right, before we get to our overrated parts here of this football team, here's a quick reminder from our friends at FanDuel. Greg will tell you all about them.
Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets, up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. By the way, I love those bonus bets. The FanDuel throws them at you all the time to try to get back. It's like a free roll. And now you get a chance to get 200 bonus bets just for one bet on MLB. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to be the first home run. All on an app that's safe, secure, super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today. Visit FanDuel.com/Boston to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball.
All right. Before we get to overrated, we just talked about FanDuel.com and all the bonuses that they can give you, especially new customers. Greg, you have one underrated bonus about this team, and I just ended my thoughts with the offensive line, and I think your bonus underrated part of this team is also having to do with the offensive line.
Yeah, but I did want to mention, Nick, to piggyback on what you said. So I had Christian Barmore as my #1 underrated thing. Originally I had an interior offensive line on there, but I decided to go with something a little bit different. So I think we're seeing things sort of the same way. I think, Cole Strange is going to be better in year 2. He's going to be more filled out. He's hopefully going to learn some things, and plus he has a real offensive line coach. I think David Andrews is a freaking rock in the middle, and now he gets back to helping Mac Jones with the line calls, which was taken away last year. And like you said, Michael Wenu, I think, is a really good player. And I know there's some discussion about moving him to right tackle, which I think it seems like we talk about every other week with this team, yet the Patriots never do it. But I think, those three inside, give me a lot of confidence about this team. And I think they're all going to be better. And I think that's going to be, a good place for them, as opposed to, I think it's underrated. And we talked about it last week. So I don't want to belabor the point, but it's underrated, how bad the offensive tackles are. If Trent Brown is not ready to go all season. I did a film study on Calvin Anderson, who right now is your LT1 on this team. And look, he's not horrible. He's not. But, and he has started some games there. But, man, he is really limited. He is your typical, if the Patriots just added him to be the third tackle, which I think was the idea, all right, he's an upgrade over, what they had before, like Yadi Kajust and guys like that. And, he's a very smart guy, tough guy. He's not horrible, but he doesn't do anything really well. He doesn't run block really well. He has issues with speed. So, if the Patriots have to start Calvin Anderson at left tackle, and let alone what they have to do at right tackle, man, it's going to be horrible. So, but let's get into overrated. And we've talked about this before. My number 3 is, Kyle Duggar. Again, not that I think Kyle Duggar is a bad player. I just think he's overrated by people. And it's a little fresher in my mind because I wrote a column about that the Patriots should, and we've talked about it before, there are very limited options as far as offensive tackles in the league. And one of the options is the Bengals. The Bengals have 3 or 4 offensive tackles that have the potential to be good starters. They signed Orlando Brown. They have Jonah Williams, who's in a contract year, former 11th overall pick. They also have Lael Collins, and they have another kid named Carmen Jackson, who was a second-round pick, I think, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So they have options. Not many teams have options at offensive tackle. And when you look at the Bengals roster, they are starting fresh at safety. They lost Von Bell. They lost Jesse Bates, both in free agency, both their starters from last year. And they have guys I've never heard of at safety. And so when you look at the Patriots, where they have a surplus, where it's safety, and, could they be interested in Adrian Phillips? Who looks like you sort of question what kind of role he's going to have on this team, especially after they drafted Marte Mapu, and it looks like he's going to hit early for this team. So Adrian Phillips would be number 1 on my list, but you also have to look at Kyle Duggar, who's going into a contract year. If he doesn't sign a contract extension, you have to look at maybe swapping Jonah Williams for Kyle Duggar, 2 guys in contract years, similar type money, probably. And so you have to look at that. And some guy came at me on Twitter saying like they're not getting rid of one of their young studs. So that's overrated. Kyle Duggar is not young. He's 27. Like he came in the league older, like at 24. And so like as opposed to, a guy who would be 23 or 24 where you're like, all right, well, he could go to another level. At 27, the odds are he is who he is at this point. And Kyle Duggar makes big plays at times. He has issues. So, with the options that they have at safety, if the Broncos want more of a bigger name, hell, maybe trade both Phillips and Duggar over there. But, you have to look at trading Kyle Duggar. I don't hate Kyle Duggar. I know people think I hate Kyle Duggar. I don't. I think I'm a realist. I think I'm accurate on Kyle Duggar. Good player, overrated by the fan base and the team.
I wouldn't trade Duggar. I'd keep him. But when you look at the Bengals, one thing to be reminded of: La'el Collins, according to The Athletic, might start on the PUP. So you want to keep a close eye on that. If Collins isn't fully healthy, then that might make it a lot less likely that Jonah Williams is even available at this point, depending on their health at tackle. So keep an eye on that. All right, your second overrated part of this team.
Their situation at receiver and third down back, at least the way the team views it. Like I think the team, and this could just be posturing for DeAndre Hopkins. I'm hoping that's what it is, or Dalvin Cook or whatever. They don't want to give off that they're that desperate. But if the Patriots think like they're good enough at receiver and third down back, you're hoping for Ty Montgomery, who has a history of being hurt, and I think he's 31. He has potential, and we've seen it, and I was excited for him last year. But, if you're banking on him, you're banking on Pierre Strong, a younger guy, maybe he can do it. But you look at what they have at receiver right now. Like we said, I'm fine with tight end. I just think what they have, and you see some of the rankings that are coming out, Bill Barnwell and PFF and ESPN and all this stuff about, the talent at those positions compared to the rest of the league. I think Barnwell had the Patriots like 26th or 27th. They're not good enough if they want to be a real team this year. If they really want to factor into the AFC, we talked about it before somewhat, go get DeAndre Hopkins, upgrade at receiver and get a real tackle. Then you have a chance with this team. And to sit there and think that the Patriots are just fine where they are and banking on Billy O'Brien to raise everybody's level, I think is just fool's gold for this team. So, number two for me is the way the team views their situation at receiver and third down back.
All right, you want to wrap this thing up. And by the way, receiver, I'll get into that in a second as well. But let's not forget, some of the injury situations they're dealing with now. We've talked about it. Don't want to beat the dead horse. But, yeah, D-Hop is out there. He's available. It's a money thing. Make the money work. Bring him in. Get your team to be better. Last overrated part of this team.
I think the defensive potential for the season, I think it's slightly overrated by people, and a lot of it comes from the analytics set who, I love Mina Kimes, but and people like her, but I think they fall in love too much with the stats, like expected points over whatever. Like, and I think we've accurately depicted this where people look at it, and I saw somebody on Twitter saying the Patriots easily could have been 11-6 last year. Yeah, but people forget 7 of their 8 wins came against backup quarterbacks. Like they better put up good stats defensively against those type of quarterbacks. I think that people overrate the second half against the Bengals. I mean, they couldn't get off the field in the first half. I think it was like 22 points and like 350 yards. Yet people want to grasp onto the second half in Cincinnati where it looked like the Bengals were just like, well, they couldn't keep the gas down. And that's fine. A lot of people do that. Doesn't mean that the Patriots were playing good defense and they didn't really have any other choice. They got embarrassed in the first half. They did better in the second half. That's great, but I'm not going to grasp at that. I'm not going to grasp at their stats when, come talk to me about this defense when they actually win a game for this team against a good quarterback. When people are like, oh, well, Steve Belichick is inventing this and doing this. People have been doing this forever. Rex Ryan used to show something pre-snap and post-snap. That's what the Patriots do. Steve Spagnuolo, that's all he does is pre-snap, post-snap. And yes, the Patriots are going to do that, and they have that ability, but it doesn't make them unique. That's what you have to do in today's offense. So I just think a lot of this stuff where people are grasping and holding on to the defense being dominating and doing this, they haven't done jack crap, since Brady left. Even 2019, they couldn't stop Ryan Fitzpatrick, and I'm sorry. You cannot, I don't want to hear about the Patriots being a dominating defense if you get waxed off the field by Justin Fields on your own home field. You couldn't even stop Justin Fields and the Bears last year. Like, that's embarrassing. So I don't want to hear anything about the Patriots defense until they actually go out there and do it.
I'll push back on the Bears a little bit. That was really the beginning of Justin Fields becoming a legitimate NFL quarterback. And I think people
they didn't win another game.
But his play, I mean, we can't fault the Bears' crappy team all on Justin Fields. Justin Fields' play improved significantly, and people were wrapped up in how did Justin Fields and Chicago's offense played before that Patriots game. If you look at the string of games after that Patriots game, Justin Fields, they started to figure out, hey, we have a mobile quarterback. Let's actually let the guy run with the football every once in a while. Quick list for me because I got a few minutes here. Defensive line ceiling, similar to what you're saying about this defense overall. I think some are slightly overrating this defensive line. Lawrence Guy's on a contract holdout. What's going to happen there? I love Christian Barmore theoretically as a football player. Is he going to stay healthy? Is he going to be engaged 17 weeks? And, can Josh Uche do it again? I think he can, but, it was 1 year. Let's see if he can follow that puppy up. Running back. I want to focus on Ramondre Stevenson. You talked about the third down back. I think some are overrating Stevenson's, gas tank, so to speak, his availability as an RB1 all year this season. Last year, he ran out of gas. I think they're going to have to rely on somebody. We know Robinson wasn't that guy. They let him go. They need to find somebody. Dalvin Cook, I don't know if that's too much, but I think everybody just looks at Stevenson and says, oh, number one back, he's the guy all year long. Let's not forget that the gas tank went empty last year with about a couple weeks to go. And finally, another younger guy is Tyquan Thornton and his impact on this offense. Until he can prove that he can stay on the football field, I'm not going to overrate his ability to impact this team. And I hope that he is able to stay healthy, and I hope he does impact it and all the things we talked about, stretching the field, his ability to run. I hope that all comes to fruition. But until he's able to consistently stay on the field, from a health standpoint, I think we overrate what he might be in year two. All right, we got about a minute or so here. Do you have any final thoughts, Greg, before we bid people adieu for the weekend and the holiday?
No, I thought you had a couple of really good lists, Nick, and I think it gives people food for thought. And yeah, it's gonna be an interesting summer, that's for sure. Hopefully, I just want the Patriots. It'd be nice if they stayed healthy and gave a competitive product. I was gonna rant about the Red Sox and the state of MLB scoring, but we'll save that for another time because I'm sure this team is going to stay absolutely infuriating for a while.
Yeah, just continue to tread water and suck on defense. This podcast, as always. Greg Bedard Patriots podcast. Nick Cattles brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Sign up now at FanDuel.com/Boston, and new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. We'll talk to you soon. More Patriot stuff, I'm sure, right around the corner.